Metal Jesus, I'm back again with my wife, Rebecca.
Hello.
Also known as Mrs. Metal Jesus. And we are here to talk about something that's going to be really fun. We are going to cover the 90s Seattle music scene.
Yeah.
And we love that because we lived here.
We were actually young then.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some of our favorite bands and favorite albums of the 90s. And just a warning though, we're not just going to cover the big guys like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Pearl Jam. Everybody knows that.
Of course we're going to cover them, but we're also going to focus on some more underground indie bands that probably didn't get a lot of national or international attention, but had a great, big, huge local following. So we're going to definitely touch on our favorite bands that were underground in the 90s as well. And like we said, we're going to cover all kinds of genres.
Yeah, and so we're going to tell some of our stories of living here at the time, so it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look. So my first memory of grunge music in the Seattle area happened, I guess, probably when I was working at the Red Lion Inn. I was a busboy, and I was working in the restaurant, and one of the cooks actually gave me a kind of a handmade copy of Soundgarden's very first EP. And I remember taking it home, and at the time I was really into, hair metal. I think I was listening to a lot of Pantera as well. But it was unlike anything I'd ever heard before. It was awesome stuff. And then very quickly after that, I needed some extra money, and I got a second job working in a little tiny Budgets and Tapes Records. It was a little record shop in Renton, and I basically worked that job, on the weekends and maybe at night. And I remember very vividly that we had a stand that you would see as a customer. You would walk in and it would show the latest releases of the week. And, kind of try to help you figure out what to buy. And I remember seeing on there was Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation.
That was actually a good album.
Yeah, it was. There was a Bryan Adams album on there, and then there was Nevermind from Nirvana. And I remember just sort of seeing the picture of the naked little kid on it.
Baby.
It was so different than everything else at the time. And then I learned, they're from Seattle. I had no idea, But working in a little record store, I got exposed to an awful lot of music at that time. That was, I believe I started working there like late 90 and 91, something like that. And I worked there for a couple years.
Cool.
But while I was here in Seattle, you were in Texas.
I was in Texas, and in Texas, I remember one of the first times I actually heard Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit was in my car, and somebody given me the cassette tape, because cassette tapes at the time were the big thing, and I put it in my car. I was on my way going somewhere, and I just kept playing it over and over and over.
Yeah, that riff, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the entire album was just amazing. That was just blew my hair back. I was just like, wow, this is going to change rock as we know it, and it obviously did. And then I went on to find Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Candlebox, and I became like a total grunge chick because I was like, this is my music, right? And
now you went to the very first Lollapalooza.
I did go to the very first Lollapalooza with Jane's Addiction, and Pearl Jam wasn't there until the second Lollapalooza.
Oh, okay.
Jane's Addiction had the first Lollapalooza. They made the mistake of putting them on second, and Pearl Jam. Eddie Vedder walks out to the crowd. And, there's 30,000 people in this stadium, and he's like, get the fuck down here. So everybody just ran toward the front stage. And, of course, I was in that crowd. And it was a great experience.
Did you get picked up and tossed, No,
I didn't, but at the time I had hard contacts, and I got the contact broke in my eye. And then I got sloshed around the crowd, and I really actually missed most of Pearl Jam, which sucks. But
you get to hear it, though.
I got to hear it. It was a concert I'll never, ever forget. And to this day, big fan.
Now, we mentioned Pearl Jam. The weird thing is, I didn't get into Pearl Jam like a lot of local people did, because a lot of people got into them in Mother Love Bone and a band called Green River. But I was still really on kind of the harder edge of music. You know, I dipped my toe into alternative a little bit, but I really like kind of rock. And so I didn't really get into them until 10, basically.
That's an excellent album. That's still probably my favorite Pearl Jam album is 10. I know the lyrics forwards and backwards. It's still one of my faves. So we have a couple of, we don't have 10, of course.
Well, we have it on CD
it on
somewhere.
iPod somewhere.
This is cool.
This is cool. What I love to show really quick is, which I'm sure we're going to show a close up, but this right here is the epitome of 90s grunge, like hangout stuff. I mean, you hung out, you played music, you recorded, that's what you did.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So one quick story about Alice in Chains I wanted to say. I'll never forget this. I was having to commute from South Seattle to Sierra, which is over in Bellevue, through the Renton S curves. Now, if you don't know Seattle, we have terrible traffic here. It's terrible. And it was even worse in the 90s because they hadn't straightened out some of those highways. And I don't like traffic. No, I don't. I mean, I road rage big time. I'm that guy, white knuckled. And I'm telling you, Alice in Chains saved my life because Dirt had just come out, and that album is really heavy and angry and down in a hole, angry chair. And I remember sitting there in stop and go traffic in Seattle, white knuckled, yelling that album. I knew all the lyrics, at the person in front of me and the person in front of him. I probably looked like a complete psycho.
No.
But it saved my life, and it saved the life of others.
Of the people in front of you.
Yes. See?
That's a good story.
Music can help.
Music saves.
Music saves. So I went to a lot of shows in the 90s. A lot of bands came through Seattle. And one of the most memorable I went to actually was put on by a local radio station, KISW, which was 99.9. And they did a kind of, I don't think they called it Pain in the Grass yet, but basically what they did is they took over a stadium out in the middle of nowhere in Kitsap County. And they got a bunch of bands together to perform for a day or two. My memory's kind of vague on this because I was pretty wasted at the show.
Most of the 90s you were wasted.
Yeah, I was. But I do remember that the lineup for this was awesome. It was Soundgarden, it was Tad, it was Candlebox played, and Tool played at the show. And
that's right, I remember you telling me about Tool.
Yeah, so Tool came out. No one had heard of them. They were pretty interesting. Basically, Maynard from Tool stripped off his clothes, jammed his junk behind himself. So he just had basically this hairy V like that. Stuck out his arms like Jesus Christ and stood there silent on stage for a while.
Wow.
As the whole audience, we're talking, it felt like 10, 20,000 people were just stunned. We didn't know.
Silent.
We didn't know what this band was. What the hell's going on?
It gets your attention.
It definitely does. Yeah. And then another thing that happened there was Tad. Tad is a local, very grunge band. I mean, really heavy stuff. And speaking of heavy, Tad Doyle is a heavy dude. He's like pushing 300 pounds. And I remember at one point, he was up on stage and he threatened to jump off the stage and take out the first
dive.
to take out the first row. And the fear on our faces, because I was right up there. I was like, he was going to snap my neck off,
Sure.
It was.
And he's a big guy, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's huge. Thankfully, he didn't do that.
So now would be a good time to talk about the indie or less popular underground bands that were from Seattle that we, again, liked a lot. That didn't get a lot of airplay per se, but they did have a big following in Seattle. And one of my favorite local bands was Green Apple Quickstep. And they just had really good music, good riffs, great singer.
Yeah. I'm not sure why they didn't make it though. It's
I don't
weird.
know. Yeah, I don't know either. I don't remember if they've broken up or when they broke up, but
I think they just kind of petered out. I mean, that's the thing.
They did.
How long can you go doing it night after night, week after week, if you never make it anywhere? And so.
But they were really fun, awesome band. You should definitely pick up. What album would you say would be your best?
I like that one. It's Reloaded.
Reloaded.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Yeah, it has a lot of good songs on here. So. definitely check it out.
Now, another band that we like, and we saw them a ton, is a band called Sky Cries Mary.
Yeah, they were really big here, had a huge following.
Yeah. I always thought that they kind of sounded like they were kind of a mix of maybe Dead Can Dance, because they would be sort of tribal at times and very kind of like Pink Floyd-ish, but then they would have heavy rock elements in it, almost like Jimi Hendrix at times.
Exactly. I think Jimi Hendrix was probably one of their biggest influences. If I had to pick a band, that would probably be Jimi Hendrix.
Well, and we saw them a ton of times. I mean, we knew people who would go and see them every time they played.
Every time. They are huge fans in Seattle.
Yeah.
So. But a couple of the bands that we liked were Bikini Kill, Bratmobile, and also Sleater-Kinney, which is also from Sleater-Kinney area.
Oh, that's right. That's the name of a road, right?
It's the name of a road on your way south of Seattle.
Now, speaking of bands that are named after real places, you have to mention that Soundgarden is named after a real sound garden.
That's true.
But it's pretty cool. It's actually this well, it is what it sounds like. It's a pipe garden on a hill, and there's lots of wind that goes through, and they're different sizes, and it basically makes this low groaning sound. It's really trippy.
It's really cool. If you're in the area, you should check it out for sure.
Yeah. Now, living here in the 90s, I saw a ton of bands, and I often didn't know if they're actually from Seattle or not. And so I wanted to cover some bands that I was surprised they're not actually from Seattle. They're from the Pacific Northwest, like Idaho and Portland and stuff like that. But they turn out to be some of my favorite bands, and I'm going to go with the big one here. That is the Dandy Warhols.
Definitely.
I love the Dandy Warhols. One of my fondest memories of the Dandy Warhols, and I always tell this story, is because it was such a shock at the time. I went to see them live, and I think her name's Mia, the bass player.
I think it's Zia.
Oh, Zia, I'm sorry. It was a very packed club. It was hot.
She does keys. She does the Korg bass and all kinds of. She does some awesome stuff. She's really amazing.
It was so hot, she just had to rip off her shirt.
Which I'm sure you loved.
Oh, yeah, I was like, it was awesome. And but I was amazed because it wasn't like a sexual thing. It was just like, it was hot. And she performed topless for the entire show. And she did that a couple times, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah. Well, it was the 90s. We were kind of,
you're
getting independent.
Yeah, flying loose. Woohoo! Yeah, fancy free.
Yep, exactly.
But that said, though, I love their music. They can do more with 3 or 4 chords than most bands. I mean, it's all about great melodies and things like that. And so we actually cover a couple of their songs in our band just because we love it so much. So another band that was not from Seattle, they're actually from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which I absolutely loved. One of the greatest shows I ever went to was for Black Happy.
And actually, I think they broke up before I got here, which I was really bummed because I love this band.
Yeah.
And they just have a great sound, great energy, and atmosphere. Didn't you go to the show, their last show or something?
I went to a bunch of them, and to describe Black Happy is pretty interesting. They started off as a pretty hardcore 80s metal band, and then they added horns just to mess with people. So they basically added a horn section to it with 2 trombones and a saxophone. And then to mix things up, they also added a second drummer for a lot of live shows.
Wow.
And so when you'd go see these guys play, it was an entire stage filled with musicians. And one of the most exciting shows was at, I think it was the King Cat Theater or someplace in Seattle. But the energy of that show was incredible. I mean, I remember being there just going, like, this was going to be the next big band, I was really impressed with them. I loved them to death.
If you're going to pick up a Black Happy album, pick this one. Also, Friendly Dog Salad is also really good.
All right, well, that's our episode on 90s Seattle music. Here's one of my favorite albums of the time.
Here's mine.
Alice in Chains.
And Bratmobile.
Yes,
good combo.
Indeed. Now, we have a bunch of ideas for doing more of these kind of episodes, including like one based on 80s hair metal, which would be pretty fun.
Because we didn't do one yet, so we have to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
If you have any suggestions on other genres or bands that you think we should check out.
Or wardrobes you'd like to see us in.
Oh, definitely. This is so hot.
It is actually pretty hot. I'm kind of sweaty.
Yeah, you're kind of sweaty. It's kind of gross.
As always, I want to thank you for watching my channel.
And thank you for subscribing.
Take care.
Bye.